Hey everyone, Mr. Stevens here. Today we're going to talk to you about demand and what is demand. Demand is one of the main parts when we start looking at basic economics between supply and demand. So, what is demand? Demand is the amount of a good or service that a consumer is willing and able to buy at various prices during a given period of time. Now, that's a little bit complicated, but basically it means what is a consumer willing to buy with the resources that they have. So, take me for instance. I would love nothing to have than to be able to buy a Ferrari. But as a teacher, that's just not happening. That's not in my budget. Because of that, I'm not included in the demand. Like when people are figuring out the demand for Ferraris, they're not looking at me. They realize that, oh, Mr. Stevens, he doesn't have that type of money, and we're not going to include him in that discussion because I'm not willing and able to buy a Ferrari. That's just not something that's going to happen. Now, if they drop the price down to $10,000 to $15,000 a year, or excuse me, $10,000 to $15,000, yeah, maybe I'll think about it. But at the prices that they're currently asking, I'm not in that conversation. So, with that being said, there's a lot that goes into trying to figure out what demand actually is. So, let's kind of take a look at it. When we look at demand, demand has a downward slope. So, if you climb up the y-axis, and then you're going to move over, and demand's going to go down to the ground. It's a downward sloping. We do say that demand is an inverse relationship. So when we take a look at it, when you actually look at the graph, as price goes up, the quantity demanded is going to go down. And when price goes down, quantity demanded is going to go up. Now that kind of makes sense. When we're looking to buy things and we realize that something is on sale, we're more likely to buy it. Why? Because it's cheaper. When the price of something goes sky high, we're less likely to buy it, primarily because people don't want to pay that much for that particular item. So quantity demand is, or when we look at demand and the law of demand, that basically states that a high price, people are not going to buy as much, and at a low price, people are going to want to buy more. Here are three main concepts that help explain the law of demand. The first one is called income effect. When there's an increase or decrease in purchasing power caused by a change in price. Basically, it means at a cheaper price, I can afford to buy more, and at a higher price, I can't afford as much. So my income didn't necessarily change. I did not get a pay raise. I didn't get a pay cut. I still have my job. But when the price changes for a particular good, that changes my purchasing power as a consumer. When that price lowers, that changes my purchasing price, and I'm able to buy more. When the price goes up for that product, that also changes my purchasing power, and I'm not going to be able to buy as much. The second thing is called the substitution effect, which we'll get into later. But it basically, if the price of one good rises, what happens to the demand for its substitute? And we'll get into that later in the video. The third thing is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now, what the heck does that mean? Law of diminishing marginal utility. Utility basically means usefulness. How useful does a product become? Right? So, as an example, it's a hot day and I've been outside working for a long period of time and I'm really thirsty. I go to 7-Eleven and I buy Big Gulp. Oh man, that first Big Gulp tastes awesome. Really hits the spot. I'm still thirsty. I buy another Big Gulp. The more Big Gulps that I buy, the less useful it becomes. So even if they drop the price of a Big Gulp, let's say from $1.29, and they drop the price down to 25 cents, the demand for me for that Big Gulp is only going to go so much. I'm not going to go out and say, wow, Big Gulps are on sale. I'm going to buy 10 of them today. That just isn't going to happen. So the law of diminishing marginal utility basically means when I add one more thing, that usefulness is not going to be as high. And then when I add another thing, again, that usefulness is not going to be as high.
All right, really quick, we're going to go over what the demand curve looks like. If you can see over here on the y-axis, we have price, and on the x-axis, we have quantity demanded. That's going to be the same case. Doesn't matter if it's supply or demand. You're always going to have price on the y. You're always going to have quantity demanded or quantity on the x-axis. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about the demand curve shifts downwards. It's got this type of slope. Eventually you'll see we'll add in supply, and supply is going to go upwards like that. But for right now, just know that demand is going to the dirt. Each time you're going to get a set of data, and you're going to have to plot the price on each of these. Make sure that the hash marks or the tick marks are evenly spaced all the way up. Okay, what I don't want is somebody to do something like this. That just isn't how you should graph things. And let's say that the thing in question is we're dealing with $1 increments. So I'm going to go ahead and label these. Now that's not good enough. I either have to go in and put the dollar sign next to each of them, or I can come over here and put parentheses and dollars. That's way easier, and I suggest you do that. And then the same thing goes for the quantity demanded. Make sure that each of the hash marks are as close to what you can get. I had a couple in the middle that weren't necessarily there, but well, let's go by 20s, or go by 10s. 30, 40. Now, let's say that this isn't necessarily in actual hundreds, but for whatever reason, we're talking in the quantity of millions. So instead of writing 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, you write quantity demanded, and then the parentheses, you just write millions there. Okay. Make sure that you have the title, and that's going to be like demand for bread, demand for corn, whatever it is, but make sure that you have that title as well. And what I was talking about, climbing up the rung of the ladder, each one of these is a rung of the ladder, and then eventually you'll have a person up here, and then you can slide down. That's what I was talking about earlier. Let's get rid of these. Okay. And that's graphing a demand curve.
Next, we're going to talk about shifting the demand curve. And the demand curve can shift to the left or to the right depending on what's happening. These shifts are non-price factors. So we're not changing the price of the actual product in question all by itself. What's going to happen is there's going to be a non-price factor that's going to cause this shift. So anytime when we're talking demand, or we're even talking supply, if we're saying that the demand shifts to the left, that's going to be a decrease in demand. If we were to say that the demand curve increases, that's a demand shift to the right, which is the other way. What causes a shift in demand? We call them non-price factors. Basically anything that is not related to changing the price. So if we change the price for a product, we're not concerned with that. That's not going to shift the entire demand curve. The demand curve will only shift if one of these non-price factors is there. We call these non-price factors the determinants of demand. There are 5 of them, and we'll talk about each one individually. The first one is consumer taste and preferences. The second one is consumer expectations. Third, market size. Fourth, income. And fifth, price of related goods. Consumer tastes and preferences are basically anything that is in. It's the new toy. It's the brand new tech gadget that we want. It's the newest and the coolest that's out there. If we are looking at a product and it's the newest and coolest thing, the demand curve is going to shift to the right, which is going to show an increase. If we have a product that people don't want anymore, okay, a product that we may not necessarily want, that's going to be a shift of the demand curve to the left. All right. Next, we have consumer expectations. Now let's assume that it's the month of September and you are in the market for a new iPhone. You don't necessarily want to go out and buy a new iPhone right now because you do realize that if you were to buy whatever model that you plan on buying in September, it's going to be cheaper in November. Why is that? Because you know that Apple will be coming out with a new iPhone sometime in November. And when that new iPhone comes out, all the other models, the price drops a little bit. If you are willing and able to wait, the demand for iPhones right now in September is going to decrease. The demand for iPhones in the month of September is going to shift to the left because you can just wait until the cheaper iPhone comes out sometime in November. Next, let's look at market size. Market size is basically dealing with population and the number of people that are in the market for a particular product. This is the whole idea behind advertising. Companies basically want to get their idea out there and let people know that our product is the best. And if they can consistently let people know that their product is the best and hear the reasons why, what they're trying to do is, number one, keep their current customer base, and number two, they're trying to bring more people over to their side, and that's the whole idea of advertising and marketing is to shift the demand curve so that there's an increase in demand for their particular product. Now let's look at a small town, and let's assume that they get news that a company is going to be coming in and adding 300 jobs to their local economy. That's huge news. That's additional mouths that need to be fed. That's additional housing that has to happen. That's really good news for the local economy of that small town because those 300 jobs came up. The demand for products in that area is going to shift to the right. Now, same thing happens, and this is partly what's happened around many small towns around the country, is that these bigger companies or these mid-sized companies, they're closing down in these small towns. And when they close down in these small towns, the demand for products go down. And when the demand for products goes down, that means that the local mom and pop shops, they also have to shut down because they're not able to sustain themselves. So when these companies, they lay off 50, 60, 100 workers or so, it's a big deal. And a lot of these small towns aren't able to make it the way that they used to. Next, let's look at income. Income is the amount of money that people earn through job, investments, anything else like that. If someone gets a pay raise, they generate more income. Now that means they are willing and able to buy more things. They can go out and get new toys. They can go get that jet ski. They can go get that snowmobile. They can go get that new iPhone, whatever it is. But the more income that they have, the more they're willing and able to buy. Same thing happens if there's a pay cut. If there's a pay cut, that means I'm not willing and able to buy things, and the demand for products is going to go down. And that's what happens when we take a look at a recession. You know, people are without jobs, and that means they don't have means to go out and buy things. They're cutting corners. They may not be making payments, and there's a whole trickle-down effect with that. Next, we're going to be looking at the price of related goods. Now, when we talk about the price of related goods, there are two different things that go along with that. One are substitute goods, and the other one are complementary goods. So for a substitute good, we're going to look at the idea of butter and margarine. In economics, we basically say that those two things are substitute products. You would be just as happy to buy butter as you would be to buy margarine. Now, if you're a health nut or something like that, yes, there are differences. But for economic practices, we're going to assume that butter and margarine are basically equals. So we are going to look at butter and margarine. And let's assume that for an instance that the price of butter does go up. Well, what's going to happen to butter? Well, if you are changing the price of butter, the demand curve for butter is not going to shift because you're just changing the price. There's going to be movement along the curve. So what's going to happen is the quantity demanded is going to change for butter. And if you increase the price of butter, the quantity demanded for butter is going to decrease. Now what's going to happen to margarine? If the price of butter goes up, people aren't going to want to buy butter. What are they going to go buy instead? Yeah, they're going to go buy margarine. The demand for margarine is going to increase when the price of butter increases. Margarine is that substitute for butter. Now let's take a look at complementary items. The basic complementary item argument that people use in economics is peanut butter and jelly. You can't just go to the store and buy jelly on its own. That just doesn't make sense. You have to go to the store and buy jelly and peanut butter. You have to have them together. So if we take a look and the price of peanut butter goes up, well, people aren't going to want to buy peanut butter. So the quantity demanded for peanut butter is going to go down. Again, that's movement along the demand curve. Well, what happens with jelly? Well, if the price of peanut butter goes up, people aren't going to want to buy that. And that also means, well, if I'm not buying peanut butter, I don't need to buy jelly. So because of that, that's a non-price factor. The demand for jelly is going to shift to the left. That's going to show a decrease in the demand for jelly, only because the price of peanut butter went up. Next, I have listed some examples of different products, and I want you to come up with your own ideas of what might be a substitute good for that product and what might be a complementary good for that product. I've got pizza, car, microwave, pool, and lamp. Go ahead, pause the video, and see if you can come up with some examples on those 5 things. Pizza. What's a substitute good for pizza? Well, pretty much any type of food. I mean, you could probably have pizza rolls, you could have hamburgers, you could have subs. All those things are with that. What's a complementary good for pizza? That would be anything to drink. Depending on where you go, that could be a salad, that could be wings, Parmesan cheese. A car. What types of substitute goods do we have for a car? Well, if you're looking at car as just transportation, it kind of depends on where you live, but let's go with any other mode of transportation. So a substitute good for a car could be a motorcycle, it could be a minivan, it could be a bicycle, it could be taking the subway, it could be taking a taxi. Like if you wanted to buy a car instead, you could take the taxi and still be able to get from place to place. A complementary item for a car could be like an air freshener, floor mats, something along that line that you would buy along with that, along with the car. A microwave. What's a substitute good for a microwave? You could buy a stove, toaster oven, something that's going to be able to heat up food in a relatively short period of time. A complementary good for a microwave could be a magnet. It could be that little dish, that glass dish that goes around in a circle for the microwave. Okay, could be like hot pads. What about a pool? A substitute good for a pool has to be something that you would actually purchase. You're not going to have a lake, an ocean, or a pond as a substitute for a pool. You're not going to go to the pool store and say, I don't want to buy that pool because, I think I'm going to buy that lake instead. So that's not a substitute good. That is a substitute, but what's something that would be a substitute good for a pool? That's something that could be refreshing, something that you would be able to cool off with. So a substitute good, maybe that's a hot tub, maybe that's a sprinkler system, maybe it's a slip and slide. A complementary good for a pool would be like a pool noodle, those floaty toys, chlorine tablets, something like that that would go along with the pool. Next, a substitute good for a lamp. You've got a flashlight, you've got a kerosene lamp, it's a type of lamp still. A complementary good for a lamp would be maybe you can get some like oils or something that you can put on the light bulb that makes the room smell a little bit better. You've got lamp shades, something like that. How can you remember the 5 determinants of demand? I kind of just like to use the acronym CCMIP. I take the first few letters of each of the determinants and I just put it in this way, CCMIP. And hopefully you'll be able to recognize changing consumer tastes and preferences. That's the first C. The second C is consumer expectations. Then you've got an M for market size, an I for income, and then a P for price of related goods. And that's basically what we have. Now, here's the last part for you. What is the difference between quantity demanded and demand? Remember, quantity demanded is a shift along the demand curve. All you're doing is changing the price. You're either raising or lowering the price in order to figure out what the quantity demanded is. So if I change the price for a product, it's quantity demanded. If there's a determinant of demand, something that is a non-price factor that comes in, that's going to be a movement and a change in the entire curve. And that's a change in demand. So whenever you have a shift to the left or to the right, that means that there's been a non-price factor for that particular product. And that is caused by a non-price factor, one of the determinants of demand of CCMIP. All right. Thank you. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.